Hello and welcome to Release Readiness Live for Developers Summer 23. My name is Alba Rivas. I am a developer advocate here at Salesforce, and I am going to be your host for today's broadcast. So here is how this is going to work. First, our product managers and experts are going to walk you through their Summer 23 highlights. And after that, we'll be taking your questions live. There are two ways in which you can post your questions. We will be monitoring both the Release Readiness Trailblazer community and Twitter. So please post your questions as soon as you can and use the hashtag Salesforce Live. I recommend posting your longer, more detailed questions on the community because that way the conversation can continue after the broadcast. And before we dive into the content, let's visit our forward-looking statement. Please make any and all purchasing decisions based on the features currently available on the platform today. And with that, I'm glad to tell you that the Summer 23 release is full of innovations for Lightning Web Components. So let's listen to Leo Balter, who will introduce them.
Thanks, Alba. Hi, everyone. My name is Leo Balter, and I am stoked to share with you some of the new LWC enhancements for Summer 23. We are finally GAing Light Dome capability for LWC. This feature will create new ways to explore how you compose your LWCs, reusing styles and traversing an expanded DOM. LWCs are no longer limited by Shadow DOM encapsulation. The Light DOM components are much more flexible for composition and create a great integration for accessibility for elements connected across multiple components. Do you want to see how it works? I am currently using the LWC Recipes app, which is a reference app that provides easy-to-learn recipes for Lightning Web Components, or just LWCs. In this app, we have several recipes that demonstrate how to work with Light DOM. One of these recipes is the DOM query recipe, which contains two child components. One is rendered using Shadow DOM, and the other is rendered using Light DOM. To see how Light DOM works, let's click the Change Text button in the Light DOM query child component. This button changes the inner HTML of a paragraph element within the component. We can also perform the same action on the Shadow DOM query child component. Next, let's click the Change Text on Child button on the parent component. You will notice that the text in the Light DOM component changes, but not in the Shadow component. This is because Light DOM allows you to use the browser query APIs through the component elements without being encapsulated by a shadow root. This makes it easier for third-party tools and testing tools to access the inner elements of your component. You may also render your LWCs in Light DOM to reuse CSS styles for a parent component. Take a look at my screen on VS Code and you will see that I have set the value of render mode static property to light. We need to do one more step to enable Light DOM. We will use the LWC render dash mode directive in the root template and set it to light. Here, you can also notice that I am using ID in the paragraph tag. The Light DOM does not scope IDs, meaning you can reference an ID in other components as well. Let's see how we use this ID in the JavaScript file. Here, you can see the parent component is using a query selector to find that element from the child component, using its own ID and changing its inner text. The parent component is rendered using Shadow DOM, but it feeds the elements from the child component rendered in Light DOM. Now, it's time for another cool feature to refresh our Summer 23 release. The Refresh View API is now GA, and will let you synchronize component data without a page refresh. Think of this API as being very similar to our Force Refresh View, but now with modern web standards. It allows you to create refresh events and decide what components will listen to these events. This avoids wasting resources such as refreshing more components than needed. Let's take a look on an example. In the LWC Recipes app, there is a tab for Refresh View that showcases the use of the Refresh View API. This tab has three components: Dispatch Contact Refresh Event, a standard component to display the list of contacts, and Contact Refresh View to display the details of a selected contact. To demonstrate the Refresh View API, let's create a contact. After the contact record is created, a new refresh event is dispatched, which can refresh any standard Salesforce Lightning component within the same active view. In this case, it refreshes the contacts list, which now shows the updated view with the new contact record. Let's create another contact and see how the contact refresh view participates in the process. After creating a new contact, you can see the updated contact list, as well as the details of the newly created contact displayed in the Contact Refresh View component. The Contact Refresh View component registers a handler method using the Register Refresh Handler API in the connected callback function and unregisters it using the Unregister Refresh Handler API in the disconnected callback function. The register handler method is called when a refresh event is received, allowing the component to sync and refresh data as needed. Additionally, you can track the status of the refresh process by implementing a refresh container. Isn't that cool? The Refresh View API requires LWS enabled and works with LWCs and custom Aura components. If you had the chance to visit the LWC booth at the latest TDX or Dreamforce, you've probably seen we are doing some cool integrations with GraphQL. Now you can try the latest GraphQL offering from Salesforce, the GraphQL Wire Adapter, now in beta for the Summer 23 release. Finally, the developers will be able to natively query from LWCs using an industry standard query language with rich predicates. With this, you get the shared caching and data management layer by Lightning Data Service. Lightning Data Service guarantees data freshness and consistency across standard and custom components and wires. Now, let's take a look at the demo. Here I have a simple application in which I've created two custom objects to store community conferences and talks happening at those conferences. On this page, I am able to see community conferences and talks together on a LWC. The beauty of this is that I was able to implement the LWC in a way that execute a single server round trip to gather the data and without writing a single line of Apex. Let me show you how I built it. Here we are in VS Code. This is the LWC I wrote. At the top, I am importing the GraphQL wire adapter and also a template literal function called GPL. As this is a wire adapter, we need to add-wire it to a property or a function. In my case, I use the function. The first parameter of add-wire is the adapter that you want to use, GraphQL in this case, and second, we pass the parameters that the wire adapter will use. We define the query parameter, which needs to contain a parsed GraphQL query. To parse the query, we use the GQL JavaScript template literal function that we imported at the top. GQL parses the GraphQL query to a format that the wire adapter can use. The wire adapter also accepts a variables parameter to pass dynamic variables to the query, although we are not using it here. When the page loads, the wire adapter will execute this GraphQL query and return the result in JSON. Then you can explore the return data to find the information that you need. In our case, we find all the edges for conference _C. We iterate over them on the template and find the different talks for each conference that we then render using an auxiliary component. You've seen how with the new GraphQL wire adapter, the LWC developer has full power of creating the query as they need, combining data, metadata, queries to multiple records, and much more to retrieve all the needed data in one server round trip. Super efficient and fast. Those highlights are just the icebreakers for the great new LWC enhancements in the Summer 23 release. Please read our Learn More blog post and complete our trail mix for more information and goodies. Thank you very much for watching my updates. And I give the mic to Ashwin with updates on the mobile offline.
Thanks, Leo. Hey everyone, my name is Ashwin Nair, and I'm the product manager of the Mobile Platform Experience team. Today, I'd like to walk you through some awesome new mobile developer tools that you can use to get your Salesforce mobile experiences to work completely offline. Now, let's get started. Before we get started, you may be wondering, why is mobile offline so important and how does it affect me? Well, we're all affected by slow or no network connectivity at some point or another. Have you ever been on a plane, on the road, in hospitals, or in rural areas where you need to get work done, but due to slow or no network connectivity, you can't get access to the cellular data you need to actually get your work done? It can be pretty frustrating. Well, if that applies to you, then Salesforce Mobile has a solution for you. Mobile Offline takes your data offline so it's with you on your device regardless of your network connectivity. Using this data, admins can provide end users the ability to access out-of-the-box offline functionalities for both standard and custom LWC experiences. And in doing so, you can ensure that your network connectivity isn't a blocker for your productivity, be able to configure your job speed done using our briefcase builder and corresponding customizable landing pages, and seamlessly sync your data in order to keep it consistent across the board. Now, in order to support these features, the Salesforce mobile platform makes it easier for developers and admins to build custom mobile experiences. I like to think of these as the engine that makes your offline app experience roll. And we have some fun new ones coming out in our Summer 244 release. These include our new Offline Test Harness, which is a lightweight client app to test and debug LWCs for mobile offline. Our Offline Starter Kit, which is an installable reference app with sample code which is publicly available that you can use to get your LWCs up and running for your offline experience within the Salesforce mobile app, and Komachi static analysis tools in order to verify at-wires to see if they're offlineable, so you can ensure 100% accuracy in your configurations. How cool is that? Now let's take a quick look at an example. Today we'll focus on Salesforce App Plus, which is our new product SKU we've released in our 244 release, comprising of offline features such as Starter Kit and much, much more. But developer features such as Test Harness and Komachi Static Analysis are also available if you're building LWCs for Salesforce Field Service as well. Now onto the example. We have Good Heart Health, who's a medical provider having healthcare workers constantly on the field needing to ensure that their records are documented so they can provide optimal patient care service. They're going out and about their day adding patient records and then poof, network cuts out. Oh man, now how are we going to ensure that the records are saved and updated? Not to worry, Mobile Offline is here for that. Through a few quick and easy steps, users can ensure that their records can be updated offline. And at the end, you too can achieve a fully functional LWC for your Salesforce app mobile offline experience as seen on the screen here. Now, how do we get here? Let's take a look. The journey begins on the admin side. First, admins will need to go into the setup screen and search for the briefcase builder. This is where they can configure their briefcase experiences to fit their business needs by adding custom and standard objects that can be used on mobile. In our example, we have accounts and contact records for Good Heart Health. Next, we'll want to access the publicly available offline starter kit repository from GitHub in order to pair our admin level configs to our offline app. Simply access the developer starter kit by accessing this GitHub link here and clone the repository contents for your use locally. This repo also has detailed README documentation of the steps that we'll be performing here today, so do take a look. Next, we need to pair the clone repository with our Salesforce org for Good Heart Health. You can do this by using your IDE of choice, and we recommend using Visual Studio Code. Simply hover towards the bottom of the screen where you see the extension say No Default Org Set. Then, authorize your org. Next, select your org URL type and insert the URL as needed. Let's use our example for Good Heart Health. Next, enter an org alias of your choice. And lastly, log in via your Salesforce URL, open in your browser tab to authorize, and now you're good to go. Next, we want to configure the briefcase experiences to fit our needs. Tying back to our admin setup, let's use the accounts object as an example. As good hard help, we want to be able to edit account records offline. And the fields for the account object most important to us are name, phone, website, industry, and type. We can go into the edit account record.js object file and import the corresponding field values from the schema library. Now the good thing is the starter kit provides LWCs with out-of-the-box configs. As seen here, users will be able to access those name, phone, website, industry, and type fields. Now, let's say you want to be able to add a new standard or custom object reference within the LWC. Simply import the field from the schema library, reference the imported field within the edit account record class, and then have some objects defined that correspond to default values, which we'll use later on. Next, I need to be able to ensure that my configs in my LWC are offline compatible and that I can retrieve its data. To do this, I'll add an attwire. I'm seeing a warning here. The Komachi static analysis tools say that the wire adapter can't be primed. No worries, I think I know of an alternative. I am using the retrieve record function reference, and maybe get record might be better, so let's try that. And success, I'm able to access the function and its contents using the attwire. Next, we reference the Lightning-based component in the HTML file and expose the fields to the end user that we've configured from within the JavaScript file. In this example, we're using a Lightning record edit form component. I know we can use a Lightning input field component as it has different field types that I can leverage to prompt my end user for account record info. Let's ensure that the name, phone, website, industry, and type fields match up to the ones pre-populated within the JS file. Now, let's take a look. As we can see here, the name, phone, website, industry, and type fields are directly corresponding to the ones that we've configured within the JavaScript file, and they reference the field name and type values. And these directly correspond to the field name and type values that we've configured within the JavaScript file a couple of seconds earlier. Now, if you'd like to add a new referable standard or custom object field within the HTML file, simply insert the base component and link the field name and value to that which you've configured within the JavaScript file. Now, we're done with our configuration and it's time to test. Simply right-click on the object record folder and select Preview Component locally. This will prompt you to select your OS of choice for testing. Let's use iOS and select the device version of choice. Next, you'll be prompted to select an iOS simulator version. And once you do so, you'll then be shown a live preview of those changes running in real time. Now I have an example of this up and running, and let's take a look. And as you can see, we have a sample view of the Salesforce app up and running on the simulator. Now, how do I access the offline app? To do so, simply go into the Settings view and select App Launcher. Next, scroll all the way to the bottom and select the offline app. Now, we're within the offline app and we can see our contacts and accounts records, everything that we originally configured from within our briefcase. For our example, let's go into Benjamin Young's account record. And from here, let's ensure that our device is in an offline state so we can ensure the changes that we make are accessible and available offline. Now, let's go into Benjamin Young's account record and make a couple of updates. So simply click on the pencil icon and make the changes as needed. In our example, let's go ahead and change his phone number to a new one. Click Done and click Save. And success! I'm able to see the updated phone number in my view over here, and the changes have been made and shown over here. You see a difference between the original values and the new values that have been updated. Now, once your device comes back online, you'll be able to see those changes get synced in real time. And the fun doesn't just end there. Now, if we take a look at the preview on the right-hand side and the configs that we made within the left-hand side on VS Code, we can see that the changes map one-to-one. Let's take a look at the name, phone, website, industry, and type fields on the right-hand side. And on the HTML, we can see a reference to the Lightning input field records for name, phone, website, industry, and type match up one-to-one. Now, how cool is that? Now, we're done with our configuration and it's time to deploy. Simply right-click on the object record folder and select Deploy Source to Org. This will deploy your LWC quick action configs directly to your connected org. Now, while this example was for the edit account record flow, the same can be applied to any other create, view, or edit quick actions created from within the starter kit.
As you just saw, we have so many cool new features that allow you to be able to get everything up and running seamlessly offline. Do take a look at our Trailblazer community for more details on these features.
Now, I'll pass it on to my colleague Julian, who will be going over some more details around platform integrations.
Thank you very much, Ashwin. Hello, you all. My name is Julian Duque. I'm a principal developer here at Salesforce, and today I will show you some of the new platform integration features. We will discuss APIs, platform events, GraphQL, and Flow. Let's take a look. Do more with new and improved APIs. You can query up to 5 levels of parent-child relationships in SQL from the REST and SOAP APIs. Now it is possible to create name credentials with the expanded Connect API. Use the Connect API to manage name credentials from REST and Apex. The GraphQL API now supports aggregate functions. You can count queries to match certain criteria and find the average, sum, maximum, minimum, and other aggregations of numeric fields. Access Amazon RDS using GraphQL via AppSync. The new Salesforce Connect adapter for GraphQL opens up new integration possibilities by enabling access to data stored in Amazon RDS, Amazon RefSheet, and other data stores in a zero-copy manner. Improve tracking and monitoring of platform events. You can track the publishing of platform events using Apex Publish callbacks to perform operations after a platform event publish fails or succeeds. You can also obtain enhanced metrics by querying the platform event usage metric object. You can aggregate usage data by event name and determine which event is using up more of your allocations, or group usage by client to find out how many clients subscribe to a particular event and how your event delivery usage is shared among clients. Also, use granular time aggregations of daily, hourly, and 15-minute periods to slice and dice usage data. Automate processes with external data by creating an HTTP called reusable action that calls a web-based service API without writing code or providing an open API spec, just an URL. Let's take a look at some of these features in action. First, let's dive into the enhanced nested SQL queries from the API. Here we have a nested query showcasing 4 levels of parent-child relationships involving account, contact, case, and case comments. In the past, you could only query a single level away from the root entity object. However, with our Summer 23 release, we have expanded that limit, allowing you to query up to 5 levels of parent-child relationships. Now let's execute this request. As you can see from the query results, we have successfully retrieved the entire nested structure, ranging from case comments all the way up to the account. Please note that this feature is exclusively supported on our REST and SOAP APIs. Now let's take a look at the new aggregate query functions for the GraphQL API. With the new aggregate queries, you can easily query, filter, and group aggregations on records. Let's start by querying the total number of accounts using the total count field. As you can see, it returns the requested aggregation. Now, let's modify the query to get the total annual revenue of all the accounts. For that, we will use the sum function on the annual revenue field by using the aggregate query. Let's select the sum function and get both the value and display value for that field. We can also get the average or any other operation supported by the currency type like max or min. Every field aggregate type supports its own functions. You can also group the results by using the group by argument. Let's get all the account annual revenue by industry. First, let's filter all the annual revenue that is greater than 0. Then, let's use group by to filter all the different accounts by industry. When we run this query, we will get all the different values. But we are missing something. Let's now add the industry in our query so we can see which value belongs to which industry. And that's how aggregation works. Right now, if you want to create a name credential or an external credential, you have to spend some time in the setup user interface. But with the Summer 23 release, you can use the new Connect API endpoints to manage name credentials and external credentials. Let's use the Salesforce Developer Postman collection to list the existing name credentials in the org. You can also create an external credential from the API with a post request. Let's create a new sample external credential with a custom header using the external credentials endpoint. After running the request, let's go to the setup interface, refresh the page, and see that the external credential has been created. If you click on it to get more details, you will find the custom header we defined in the request. Now, let's create a name credential using the name credential setup endpoint. This name credential has to be related to an existing external credential. Let's link it to the external credential we just made. If you look in the setup interface, you will see that the name credential has been created and it is related to the external credential. Let's click on it to see the details and confirm that everything has been created properly from the API. Finally, let's run the list name credential request again to see the new name credential in the API result. The HTTP action in Flow is now generally available for GET requests and in beta for POST requests. To create a new HTTP action in Flow Builder, just add a new action and then click on Create HTTP Callout. This makes it easy to create an external service without needing an open API spec, just an URL. Let's create an action to fetch books from an API. We will call it getBooks, and we will use the HTTP GET method. Next, we need to specify the URL path. Keep in mind that the base URL comes from a name credential. Lastly, you will need to give a sample response in JSON to map the variables to their types. I have a sample response, and after clicking on Review, it will recognize the data structure. Here, you can map each property to a type. Once the external service is created, you can define your flow action, and that's it. You can start using it. If the API changes its output, you can always update it in the external services setup interface. Just select the operation and click on Edit HTTP Callout. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The good news is that every release brings more possibilities for Salesforce developers, and Summer 23 is no different. I recommend giving these features a try and start building strong applications on the Salesforce platform. Now, let's move on to some MuleSoft updates with Akshara.
Thanks, Julian. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Akshata Sawant and I'm working as a senior developer advocate at Salesforce. So today, I'm going to walk you through some of the new features, some cool releases, which are going to be part of the summer release on the MuleSoft side. So let's get started. Here goes the first one, Anypoint Code Builder, aka ACB, which is MuleSoft Next Generation IDE. Code Builder's beta was made available globally in Jan 23. You must be wondering how different it is from an existing Anypoint Studio. Firstly, we have embraced VS Code as a backend infrastructure with AI-based and design time recommendations. Also, we're taking reuse to a whole new level with building blocks, allowing many kind of reuse across future apps. This summer, we are rolling out a few more exciting features. In terms of environment, we have the extended support to EU Control Plane and the Visual Studio Marketplace desktop extension, which will be also rolled out. You can now access global and prepackaged snippets from the Canvas UI. Also, the asset functionality is made available in the Anypoint Exchange. Also, the iterative scaffolding is now available, which allows you to iteratively design and implement the APIs. Moving on to the next one, I'm really excited to announce MuleSoft's Anypoint API Experience Hub. It is our next generation major evolution of API Community Manager. It allows you to truly build an engaging platform and branded developer portal with no effort. With API Experience Hub, you can start fast to pre-build our API templates and simple portal builder and launch portal in a matter of minutes. You can also customize and scale your portal with Salesforce Experience Cloud to add deep engagement and community building across your API products. All of this will help your team drive API adoption across any audience and truly maximize the value of your API program.
Anypoint API Experience Hub is MuleSoft's newest product that allows your organization to create vibrant API ecosystems both within and outside the enterprise. The product will generally be available in June 2023. And setting up your custom API portal requires just 4 simple steps. First, we will connect to a Salesforce instance. It can be a new or existing Salesforce org. To connect, we will need to specify the environment type and input a custom Salesforce domain if we have one. Then, we just need to log in with our user, allow the permissions, and confirm the account. Once connected to Salesforce, you can then style the portal as needed from color schemes to the details. You can continue to make changes to your portal after this step. And in the next 3 steps, you'll be able to customize your home page, API catalog page, and API detail page. Now, let's see how we can manage APIs and users. First, to add the APIs, in the API Management tab, we can select an API in Anypoint Exchange and add it. For each API, we can determine the visibility of the API versions in the portal to determine what should be available to the public versus select users. And now that we've chosen the APIs, we can customize the API portal to fit our needs. The installation helped you to get a quick start, but through the Salesforce Builder, we can now further customize the site. So Experience Hub comes with various pre-built components on top of standard Experience Cloud components. For example, the Asset Catalog component is pre-built for you to see a list of all the APIs that are available in the portal. Once you're done customizing the portal and the preview looks good, we can now publish it. To save on time, we've already gone ahead and published the portal. Now, anyone can access the portal with the published URL, and we can currently see the vendor API, but not the shipping or catalog API. And to see the member-only APIs, we'll need to log in. We've already gone ahead and set up the login, but the registration process is also simple. As a member of the portal, you can now see certain APIs. For each API, we can see auto-generated documentation based on the API specification in Exchange, and also make test calls using the mocking service. Once a developer finds an API that they want to use, they can now request access. For APIs managed by Anypoint Platform, you can even set up SLA tiers and the approval process. And in this case, the shipping API is set up for auto approval. So in summary, with Experience Hub, you'll be able to create branded API experiences for any audience, connect API producers and consumers, grow API adoption and reuse, and unlock new revenue streams by tracking client usage using the client ID and client secret created during the request access process.
That wraps up my section, and now I'll pass it over to my colleague Ewald for more on summer release.
Thank you, Ashada. My name is Ewald Hoffman, and I'm the product manager for Tableau's developer experiences. Let's take a look at what we have available for you to make embedding analytics easier. Tableau provides organizations with powerful insights and the ability to make data-driven decisions. It allows users to create interactive and visually appealing dashboards that help convey insights in an easy-to-understand way. There are 3 main benefits that can be driven by data. The first is creating whole new revenue streams for your business. For example, the UK grocery chain Ocado, who sells anonymized data to their suppliers. Secondly, improving operational efficiency to cut costs. For example, Jaguar Land Rover automated comparing quotes as part of their buying process. And thirdly, enhance your customer relationships to retain valuable customers or attract new ones. Tableau enables developers to make it feel as if the visualization is part of your app. Your users won't even notice that Tableau is actually powering the visualization. And these embedded Tableau views are not static images, but interactive to unlock the full power of Tableau right inside the app. Tableau's embedding API enables developers to interact with analytics to get exactly the user experience you're after. The developer of this portal wrote just a few lines of code to create an intuitive experience to embed Tableau in their web application. Adopting new technology can be a steep learning curve, and that is why we built the Tableau Embedding Playground. With the playground, you can quickly create code to embed any Tableau visualization with just a few mouse clicks. You can easily modify the width and the height of the component or hide the toolbar. And with code snippets of the most commonly used methods, applying a filter or setting a parameter programmatically is at your fingertips. So let's dive into it. I switched to the Embedding Playground, which just released in preview and will be generally available after the summer. The current version of the Playground has a fixed demo workbook to play with. On the left, you see how you can configure the look and feel of the embedded visualization using simple UI. Let's modify the width to 500 and the height to 400 pixels. Let's see what it looks like by clicking the Run button. That is a nice size for the app that I have in mind. The next step is to add some interactivity. Let's go to the Code tab. This makes a JavaScript editor available that contains the code to interact with the viz. It already contains the boilerplate code required to show the visualization. Let's add a filter to show only the data from the east of the US. To do this, we will have to open the Add Interactions drawer to get access to the code snippets. Filters are applied to a worksheet, so let's expand the worksheet category and then filters. To apply a filter, I only have to find the correct code snippet and drag it to the JavaScript window. As you can see, this API filters the region field to the east. So let's see if that works. And indeed, the data has been filtered correctly. In the Tableau workbook, there is a parameter that can toggle city names on the map. So let's do the same as before. Open the workbook category and drag the code snippet to set the parameter value. In this code snippet, you see that we're setting the parameter label to display to the value city. Let's test this out. The embedded viz looks good. So now it's time to integrate it into my own web application. To get the HTML and the JavaScript, click the download button and choose the option Copy Embed Code to put it on my clipboard. For the purpose of this demo, I'm using Glitch, which is my favorite platform to quickly create a prototype for any web application I'm creating. Let's paste the code, and in the preview, we see exactly what we saw in the embedding playground. When we inspect the code, you see the Tableau web component as an HTML tag, and below in the script portion, you see this JavaScript code to filter the data and set the parameter value. As a web developer for a banking portal, I now know how to integrate Tableau using the same principles. This app uses buttons in the style of the application to set parameters to toggle between month and quarter, and apply a date filter to all the visualizations on the screen. I am sure that this will blow the minds of our banking users. That is all I have for today for the Tableau developer features for this summer release. Let's open it up for questions. Back to you, Alba.
Welcome to the Q&A portion of this session. We're very excited to hear from you, and we're already seeing a lot of great questions coming in. I would like to remind you that there are two ways in which you can post your questions. You can post them on the Trailblazer community. You can do that on the Salesforce Developers group or in the Release Readiness Trailblazer group. And the most important thing is to add the hashtag Salesforce Live. And the other place in which you can ask us your questions is Twitter. Okay? Akshata had to go, couldn't stay for the Q&A, and instead of Akshata, we have here Alex Martinez, who is a developer advocate for MuleSoft. Hello, Alex. Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for popping up. And let's go ahead and get started. So here we have our first question. It's a question that has been asked on the Trailblazer community, and it is for you, Leo, because it is about the Refresh View API. And the question says, does Refresh View also refresh standard components like a record detail page? I'm wondering if refresh views should be used instead of notify record update.
So here's the thing. Refresh view does update LWC standard components, but no our standard components. And you can also use refresh view to update custom LWC in our components. And in the case of refresh view and using notify record update available, they are different. One of them is the refresh view you use to refresh the data within your components in the client side, and the other one you use to update the data from the server.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you so much, Leo.
Thank you.
We have a second question, and this question is about GraphQL. We really had two sections about GraphQL because we talk a little bit about the wire adapter, and also we talk about the GraphQL API itself. And this time the question is going to be for Julian because it's specifically about the GraphQL API. And the question says, as far as GraphQL is concerned, are we only limited to consuming that GraphQL API exposed by Salesforce, or can we also create custom GraphQL APIs?
Okay, Alba, thank you very much for that question. And as of today, we have access to the UI API from GraphQL. And with that, we can query both standard objects and custom objects among like other different functions, as you saw on this release, the aggregated functions. If you need a custom GraphQL API, in that case, you will need a middleware, an application that sits in between your client, the one that is consuming the API, and Salesforce data. And for that, you will need to write that custom GraphQL API using the language of your choice. But directly from Salesforce, you cannot build a custom GraphQL API.
Okay, understood, Julian. Thank you very much for your response. And thank you very much for the person who asked the question, because it's a really smart question. And I'm sure that there are lots of use cases that we can implement in the future that match what you described. Okay, so the next question that we have is about mobile offline. And this one is going to be for Ashwin. So the question is, how can I get access to the offline app features for the starter kit?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. And thanks, Alba. So around the features that we have for offline app, those are under our Salesforce App Plus license. And you'd need to have that enabled in order to get access to the offline app features and corresponding fun stuff that comes out there. And you can get that enabled in order to get everything up and running.
Okay, fantastic. I understand that the way to get that enabled is to talk to your account executive, right?
That's right. You can reach out to your account executive for more details around that, and you'd be able to get that up and running for your use cases.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashwin. The next question is going to be about Tableau. We have representation of almost all our products today, and this is the first time that we do this for Release Readiness Live, and I'm so excited for that. And the person representing here Tableau is Ewald Hoffman, and this question is for you, Ewald. So the question is, will the Tableau embedded components work in the Salesforce platform itself? I'm wondering if I can embed Tableau components in an app page inside of Lightning, for instance, for Sales Cloud or Service Cloud. And the person who asked this is Dave.
Yes, thank you, Dave, for that question. The answer is simple, yes. We have a lightweight component where you can embed Tableau content inside of Salesforce. And we have improvements planned to make that even better. Right now, from my understanding, the authentication is not seamless, and that is something that we will deliver, I think, in the next release.
Okay, amazing. And I think the name of the component is Tableau Vis, something like that, right?
So that is the, if you're embedding it in an HTML, then the web component is Tableau Vis, yes.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Ewald. So now we have one question for Alex about MuleSoft. And the question is, when is any point code builder gonna be ready to use in production-ready environments?
Yeah, so it's going to be ready on the GA, so the day that it comes live, because right now it's on a beta version, but we're just simply, it's going through different features every time. But the GA is going to be second half of fiscal year 24. So it's still a way to go, but it's coming. And on the beta version, we're getting more features every time. So you can also try out the beta if you want. If you want it for production-ready environments, then just wait for the GA.
Thank you, Alex. We saw that in the presentation before. And also, if you want to read more about these new features included in any point code builder, there is a blog in our Learn More campaign, which is specifically about MuleSoft, and where you will be able to read all those new features included in this release timeframe. We have a question that came through Twitter. The person who's asking the question is Sumanth. So thank you so much, Sumanth, for asking that question. And it's probably a question for Ewald again, because Sumanth is asking how can they start learning about Tableau? Which is the best way to start learning about Tableau?
Tableau has a couple of ways how you to start learning. If you want to learn more about how to do analytics, we have Tableau Public, where you can sign up in public. It is a free environment where you can share with the community what you're doing. And there's a lot of examples. We have a couple of million people on public creating content, and you can use them as an example to get started. And there's a lot of user groups out there where you can get content and ideas from. Last week we had Tableau conference and Salesforce Plus. There's a lot of content available on what we're doing, and then we have the of course the community itself, where you go to the forums where you can learn a lot and ask questions. So yeah, a lot of ways how you can get started with Tableau.
Thank you so much, Ewald. Also, I recommend you to take a look at the Learn More blog post that talks about Tableau. We have another one for Tableau. The next question is about platform events. So this one is for you, Julian. And the question says, what's the recommended approach for Apex platform event callbacks? Is it better to use success callback or failure callback? Can you use both?
Of course. Well, it always depends on the use case. And yes, you can use both. It is an interface. You are going to create a callback class that implements either one or both interfaces. But what happens is that most of the platform events are going to be successful. So if you are listening on the success callback, you might get a lot of callback executions that might incur in some performance issues. So it is better to react or listen for failures, because we want to know when a platform event fails to be published, so we can do either a retry or republish, or we can log why it failed. So even though you can listen for a success, the recommended approach is to use failures. Also, make sure you are adding an event ID to that platform event, so you can track the platform event that you publish on the platform event that you are getting the callback on.
Great. Thank you, Julian. Was a very much expected feature. People were really looking forward to it. And I'm so glad that now we can define platform event callbacks.
Yep.
Okay, so we have one more question from Sumanth, and Sumanth is asking why we are not having Apex developer updates in this release readiness live. So Sumanth, I can probably answer that one. The reason for that is that there were like so many features to pick from that we cannot include all of them, and we try to be fair and to include the features. Like, for instance, if in the previous release readiness live we already talked about Apex, maybe in this release readiness live for summer we don't include it, but that doesn't mean that there are no features. You can go to the summer 23 release notes and take a look at them, and we will include it for sure in the next one.
And also, two of the most exciting Apex features are beta on this release. So
yeah,
maybe
that's true.
When they are GA, we can like add them to release readiness live.
Yeah, and well, Julian kind of covered some of the features with platform events, right? Because it's part
and also
of Apex.
Name credentials. Now you can create name credentials directly from Apex using the Connect API.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your question. So we have another question from Tamur. And the question says, this one is for you, Ashwin. And the question says, is there also offline features for the Salesforce mobile software development kit, the SDK?
Yeah, for sure. So right now we're in the process of building out for the mobile SDK, some of the offline features. The main features that you see are available for our Salesforce app as well as field service use cases. We're in the process of building those, making them into our mobile SDK as well.
Thank you very much for that clarification. We have another question. This time is from Jefferson and it's for Julian. The question is about the 5-level depth that you can reach in your SQL queries. And the question is, should we expect in the future to have these 5 levels in Apex as well?
Well, to put a little bit of context, you can query now up to 5 levels of parent-child relationships, but only on the API, both SOAP and REST APIs. Jefferson is asking if we are going to be supporting these in Apex. Sadly, I don't have an answer for that. We will need to circle back to the team that is working on this feature, and we will be able to reply or do the follow-up on the Trailblazer community. But this is a great question. But so far, support has been added on both the APIs, but I guess the team will work on Apex support, but I cannot say anything. I will need to circle back this question to the team working on this feature.
Thank you, Julian. Well, sometimes we have product managers in the stream. Sometimes we have developer advocates. Roadmap questions are better responded by product managers. So what we are going to do, Jefferson, as your question is already posted on the Trailblazer community, we will mention the product manager for this feature and we will ask, okay? Fantastic. So we have one more question, and this one is about Flow. And the person asking this is Andrew. When will Flow have feature parity with Apex? In Apex, I can use add error to nicely throw an error from a trigger or Apex. However, in Flow, there is no way to do complex record validation with this. Will this be getting fixed soon? Okay, Andrew. So for this question today, we don't have a product manager for Flow here, but this is a question that we can follow up with also in the Trailblazer community, unless someone wants to add something here in this call.
There is also a Flow-specific release readiness live. So maybe we can also like redirect this question to that to that team as well, because they are like focusing directly on flow features.
Yeah, Andrew, what I can tell you is that we are heavily investing in flow. You just have to read like the release notes for the last couple of releases, and you will see that it's full of flow features, and that for sure that will arrive at some point. Okay. So we have one more question. And I'm I have here the information for the flow stream, and it is on May 24 at 9 a.m. PDT. Okay, so you can join that one. We are going to move to a question about Lightning Web Components. And this question, Leo, of course, is for you, and it is about Light Dome. So the question says, now that Light Dome is GA, do you have plans to native Shadow Dome, for native Shadow Dome?
Yeah, so our current LWC are using a synthetic Shadow Dome by the time like compatibility was not available, but now that native Shadow Dome is available across all modern browsers, we plan to release support for native Shadow Dome very soon. And it's not yet there, but you can expect the next release Readiness to be announcing the mixed shadow mode. We already have documentation for it. It's currently in dev preview. So you're going to be able to try it out very soon.
And I can tell you, I've been working on a blog post which gives some information about the work that we are doing in base components to support Shadow DOM. And
Yes.
that blog post is going out next week. So stay tuned because you will have more information there.
Yes.
Thank you, Leo. So the next question is for Alex. And the question is about API Community Manager. The question says, you mentioned API Community Manager. What is the key difference between API Community Manager and API Experience Hub?
As far as I know, I believe that API Experience Hub is kind of an enhanced product from the API Community Manager. So if you are just getting started with any of these two products, I recommend you go to the Experience Hub because it just has more features. It gives you more freedom to create your pages. So I really recommend you go to that one, but you can also try the API Community if you want. But yeah, that's the key difference. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, Alex. Okay, so we have one more question here, and this time the question is about Tableau. So it is going to be for Ewald. And the question is, can I use content from Tableau server? I assume this question is about the playground, right?
Yeah, so if you're using the embedding playgrounds, that is announced at last week at Tableau conference, and it's now available in preview. That is a free tool that you can use to explore what you can do with the embedding API of Tableau. The version that we currently have in preview only allows you to have a demo workbook to get yourself familiar. We will keep updating the preview, and soon we will enable you to bring your own URL, so your own workbook. That workbook can either be hosted on the Tableau cloud instance, or it can come from your Tableau server instance, as long as that workbook is accessible from the internet. Okay,
understood. Thank you very much, Ewald. With the next question, and this one is going to be for Julian. Julian, the question is about GraphQL and the query the aggregation capability that you demoed. And the question is, can I query both aggregate values and query values within the same GraphQL query?
One of the main advantages about GraphQL is that you can query multiple objects, and both aggregate and query are, let's say, fields that you can add to the same query. when you see the query, you are adding the aggregate keyword, and then you start like performing the query, doing the aggregation. At the same level, you can add the query keyword to perform a regular query and get, for example, accounts or contacts or other information that it is not aggregated. So yes, the answer is that you can use both within one single API request.
Yeah, GraphQL API is like a game changer, I believe, because you can do like so many things, right? In just one call, and also from your Lightning Web Components. So the wire adapter is like fantastic because it provides all the caching and synchronization capabilities that the Lightning Data Service provides. Is also aligned with the other wire adapters that we already had in the platform. So I see like a lot of evolution on this side, and I think this is going to be really great for backend and for front-end developers, for both of them.
Yeah, I've been using GraphQL for a while, and pretty much when I learned that we were releasing both the connector and the API, I mean, this changed the game, as you said, Alba.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Julian, very much for your insights. Okay, so we have one more question here, and this time is going to be for Ashwin. It's about mobile offline. And the question is, what types of Lightning Web Component events can I trigger via the starter kit?
Thanks. And great question. The events that you can trigger include create, view, and edit quick actions for both accounts, visits, and opportunities records out of the box. In addition to this, you can also do so for any standard or custom LWC objects that you build out, and you can query those within the starter kit as needed.
And fantastic, Ashwin. Thank you so much. And the next question is also for you. Lots of great questions about mobile offline. It's a hot topic in this release. And the question is mobile offline functionality already integrated with consumer goods cloud for visits functionality?
That's a good question, and we'll need to like circle back on that. I don't believe it is today, but that's something that we can check and let you get back to you guys on via the Trailblazer community.
Yeah, so Jamili, who is the person who asked the question, as you posted the question on the Trailblazer community, that's the best place to post the question, because it's really easy to get back to them, and we will contact another product manager for this area so that you can get your question responded. So we're going with one more question about Tableau. And the question is, how can you copy the code from the Tableau playground into your own application? How do you do that?
So there are a couple of ways. The first one is just copy the code from the JavaScript and the HTML window in the playground into your application. Your application, if it's HTML, it is fairly simple, right? We have an HTML component that you just put there, and then we have a JavaScript component that you can either put it to a script tag or in your JavaScript file that is in your application. The second way is we have a download icon in the top, and it allows you to either copy the full code on the clipboard to paste in your application, or you can download it as an HTML file, and you can even open an HTML file to see exactly what you just did in the playground.
Can I ask you, which one do you prefer to use?
If I use anything, then I will copy the code on the clipboard.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Iwal. The next question is for Leo. Leo, how does security apply to GraphQL?
Okay, that's a good question. So we currently enforce field level security and CRUD permission on the user on GraphQL queries, just like for REST requests.
That means, so this is a question for myself. So when you request a record and you don't have access to the field, what would happen? That the query fails or it doesn't return the record?
So I need to circle back on this one and get the better answer to that. I'm sorry that you went into a complexer level that I
Okay.
got caught off guard.
That's perfectly fine. Thank you so much, Leo. But it's great to know that field level security is supported and that we won't be able to access fields for which the user doesn't have access, right? Fantastic. So let me see if we have here more questions on the Trailblazer community or Twitter. And I can see one more question for Julian. And this time it is about HTTP callout actions. Do the HTTP callout action work with XML or text responses? This is for Flow, right?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite features right now because it makes it super easy to perform HTTP requests without importing a whole external service. So take a look and use it. It's also a game changer. But for GET requests, it only works with JSON fields. It has a great way to map a preview JSON response within the different types for fields, but it doesn't support XML or text or any other format. It is specifically for JSON.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julian. There is one more question for you, which is about GraphQL, or maybe Leo can also answer, but it's about the GraphQL API server. And the question is about limits. Are there any limits in the amount of records returned or the length in the characters of the query? And this question is from Mikkel.
So there are different answers here, and maybe Julian can actually augment to my answer. Currently on the wire adapter, you usually get 10 records per query, and that's because you're recommended to do cursor-based pagination. So wire adapter supports cursor-based pagination, and by default it returns 10 results. And that's where on the wire adapter, you can use the first and after arguments to specify the number of records to return and to paginate through a list of results. On the API size, there might be some difference there, but that's what you get on the wire adapter. And that's the current limitation, is more to encourage cursor-based pagination, so you have better delivery of data that you provide. So smart delivery. Yes.
And in regards of limits, the GraphQL API uses exactly the same ones that the Connect REST API uses. So if you want to learn more, you can go ahead, go to the documentation, take a look at the Connect REST API limits, and those will apply for the GraphQL API as well.
Good to know. Good to know. I have to add that I've been playing with this quite a lot recently, and well, I found cursor pagination very useful. It's much more robust than offset pagination, so it's a great improvement from SOQL to GraphQL. And I also know that we're working on documenting the limits better, because the GraphQL API was made GA very recently, and we are still improving some of the bits that are missing or not completely accurate in the documentation. And the PM for the GraphQL API told me this very recently.
Yeah. One thing to note in regards to pagination is that the GraphQL API, it supports or is based on the relay connector specification for GraphQL. So any other client that you are using externally that supports the same specification will be able to help you with that pagination. So the edges, the nodes, and how it paginates, it's a whole specification that many other APIs and clients already support.
Very useful, as always. Okay, so the next question is about mobile offline. Again, it's about mobile offline for custom objects. Can we use the custom objects in the Salesforce app offline, Salesforce App Plus, and up to how many objects can be added? And the question is from Bhargava.
Yes, so you can use custom objects on the Salesforce offline app, similar to how you set up standard objects. You'd go through the same process for the custom objects that you build out. As far as how many objects can be added, I will have to double check that amount, but I believe it is about. I think I'll have to double check that amount and get back to you. But yes, you can use custom objects on the Salesforce app offline.
Great, thank you. So Vargava, we will get back to you on the Trailblazer community, okay? Great. So we have one more question about Tableau, and the question is about single sign-on. How does it work?
Yeah, so if you're using a Tableau, you don't want to, if you embed your content into an application, you don't want your users to also sign in to the Tableau instance. And so we have a feature that is called Connected Apps that builds a trust relationship between your web application and the Tableau instance, so that we can provide a single sign-on through a couple of secrets. So as long as the Connect app basically accepts a JWT, a JSON Web Token, and as long as you make sure that the JSON Web Token is created on server side, you are absolutely secure to create a single sign-on experience.
Great, thank you, Ewald. I want to warn you that we have just a couple minutes left. So if you have any pending questions, please make sure to ask them now, because we will have time for one or two more questions, okay? So here we have one about the Salesforce Connect GraphQL adapter. And the question is, Julian, can I connect the Salesforce Connect GraphQL adapter with any GraphQL API?
That's an excellent question, Alba. Due to the nature of the schema, it is a complex operation to connect Salesforce Connect with any GraphQL adapter. So due to the nature of the schema, as of today, only AWS AppSync schemas are supported. So this integration is directly with the AWS AppSync. But what I've heard is that the team is also thinking on working of adding support to any other GraphQL schema as well. So if you have your API with AWS AppSync in front of any other like data store deployed in AWS, sure, you can use the connector. But if it is your custom GraphQL API, it doesn't work as of today.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that, Julian, super useful. And last question today, the last question is going to be for Ashwin. The question is about the Komachi static analysis tools and how can you access them, right?
Yeah, great question. So Komachi static analysis tools are built on top of a framework called Komachi, which we use for any inline validation and linting that you see in things like Starter Kit and stuff like that. And it's a publicly available repository that you can use to get those linting messages in place for your use cases, not just for the Salesforce app, as you saw in the demo, but also a couple of other use cases across field services and other providers as well.
Thank you very much, Ashwin, for that great response. So to wrap up, I would like to share something else, which is that if you want to learn more, make sure to go to sforce.co/learn more, because in that web page, you are going to have access to the 4 blog posts that we have published explaining all these features, all these innovations further. And we deep dive into them, and there you will find resources and other links to continue learning, right? In that link, you will be able to complete also a trail mix for the summer 23 release for developers. There's also another one for admins, but the one that you will, that I would like you to complete, of course, is the developers one. And with that, I would like to thank all the speakers that have been here today. Thank you very much for all your hard work behind all those demos and all those presentations, because the audience can't imagine how how much effort we put into this. I hope that it's been helpful. I hope that you learn at least something from this presentation that you are able to continue learning later. And I also want to thank the audience, because without the audience, this wouldn't be possible. We received fantastic questions. We will continue responding questions if they arrive later after the stream. So if you are watching this video asynchronously, make sure to ask your questions as well. And we will complete and follow up with the questions that didn't have a clear answer. With that, I hope that you have a really great day with rest of your day, and hope to see you in the next Release Readiness Live. Enjoy. Thank you.